Give me a thumbs up when you're ready. Well, I don't have any updates on Mate and don't have anything new on Zane or TJ. Uh, Mate should be able to play on Sunday, eligibility wise. He's eligible to play. However, he's got a shoulder issue right now. So, besides the eligibility issue, he's got a shoulder issue. So, I don't know if he'll play or not. I am excited to play in front of fans. I'm excited for fans to see this team. I think people will walk away just. I'm kind of put a great deal of value on sharing the ball, and I think this team does a really, really good job of it. I've watched us get better, and that's the one area where I've watched us really, really make strides. And it's been an issue in the past, and to be honest with you, been able to coach really good players, and they've been able to do a lot of different things. So this is one of the teams that I've been a part of where sharing the ball is it's part of our core of who we are, but this team does a really good job of it. So I'm excited for fans to see that.
And for getting into the exhibition and obviously in the season, a lot of guys are practice players, some guys are gamers. Have you picked up on any of that competitiveness from some of the guys on the team that you think are like gamer guys?
Yeah, it's a good question. I do think that it's going to come down to your level of preparation. I think guys that are really good as quote unquote gamers, their prep work is elite. I mean, they know how to do it from off the court habits to their commitment. I share with the players being a good player is really a lifestyle. It isn't as if you just show up and just do this. You're committed to your sleep. You're committed to your practice routine. You're committed to film. And I do have an idea about the guys who are very strict with their schedule. And you know it. And the good ones that I've been around are very strict and very disciplined with their schedule. So we'll see if that's how it plays out. Again, we're extremely experienced. But it'll be good to see guys in a different light, specifically with a crowd.
You mentioned improved playmaking. Is that just moving the ball around? These guys know how to share it around the perimeter, or is this like guys that are driving and making the right decision, getting to the paint? I mean, what are you seeing more of when you say that the team likes to share the ball?
Yeah, I would tell you that it's probably has more to do with paint touches, staying away from a number of high paint shots. I mean, as I mentioned last week, shot selection's a pretty big deal, and so if you just look at from mid range to high paint to restricted arc to threes, I mean the high paint and the mids just don't necessarily equate to efficient offense. And so I think players understand that if I can get paint touch threes, if I could get paint touch dump downs because teams are helping up. Quincy Ballard, obviously being able to get top of the square lobs. Corey's that way as well as Harlan. Just being able to cut from the corner and being able to get a high paint touch and then being able to find people. Bijan and Quincy have there's a synchronicity there that's really rare simply because of Bijan's ability to pinpoint passes. I think he's cut down on his turnovers, but we'll see. You don't really want to take his. I wouldn't call him a big risk taker as much as we're trying to get him to focus more on the singles rather than always having some pass that's elaborate. But he has been more accurate. But I would tell you a lot of this sharing the ball comes down to guys understanding efficiency and the high paint passes versus high paint shots.
With Zane out to start the year and Monte kind of questionable if he's going to be able to play, who do you view as that backup five behind Quincy?
Yeah, well, I mean, Ronnie. Ronnie will end up doing it for us. He's done it in practice. We don't know about Mate's eligibility situation, and so we're planning on that going into our first game, and who knows how long that. So, what's great about that is you can kind of extend the floor, and we do a lot out of that particular action anyway, and so I don't know that it's new. I do think that we can play different ways. When you have Quincy's on the floor, it's different than having Mate and Ronnie on the floor. Now, defending is the bigger issue, without one of those guys. But to be honest with you, we don't really go one on one in the post much. We'll give it a look, but you'll usually see us blitz the post more often than not. So for us, it's not that big of a deal. It's just usually we would blitz with Ronnie or with Corey, and now you're having to blitz maybe with a smaller guy. So not too big of getting outside of the element of what we do.
Has there been any thought to when Quincy is on the floor, runs more three-guard lineups, three ball handlers on the floor to kind of extend the ability of Quincy as a role guy in the pick and roll game, to make him more of a versatile threat?
Yeah, I would tell you we're big on having live ball pick and rolls, and so that's a big important part. I think that's probably a huge difference that you see in the NBA game versus a European game is live ball pick and rolls, and you need multiple people who can be in live ball pick and roll situations. So for us, let's say there's Justin and Bijan on the court. Harlan would be one of those other as a third, a live ball pick and roll guy with the Quincy Ballard. So yes, that's definitely the case.
Last year he was pretty good, for an elite shot blocker at avoiding fouls. What made him so good? Is it just a timing thing, and how crucial could that be early in the season with some question marks behind him?
Yeah, some of that's just the way that we played pick and roll coverage, right? Just being in drop, and I mean he's going to be further back, so he's not up and really forced to contain a ball handler. I mean, I go back to some games where we really tried it. Memphis here, and Javon Quinterly's just too fast, and he's just too much of a water bug that we just weren't able to contain him via the blitz anyway. So I think a lot of what he does is one, he's back in a drop, so I don't know that puts you in a lot of situations where you're trying to corral a ball handler and finding yourself in foul trouble. But does a good job. And I think the other thing is from a game plan, I don't know that teams really are trying to isolate the post if Quincy Ballard's guarding you. I mean, they know that he was third in the country in block shots from a percentage standpoint. So I think probably teams stay away from that.
And then from a durability perspective, how many minutes per game do you think he's going to be able to go this year?
Quincy Ballard? Well, it's a good question. It's kind of, I think a lot of guys could probably go long. It's can you go with the level of intensity? And man, you can kind of see guys taper down, and they just don't have it. So you may be able to play them. And I felt that way about last year's teams. There were just some guys that we had to play extended minutes simply because I just didn't think we had the depth a year ago. And because of that, I just don't know that there's just fresh bodies being out there. I do think, hopefully, coaches, especially as the year goes on, I was looking today, I mean, UConn played 6 guys a year ago. I think you'll see, rotations get smaller and smaller, but early, I think we're more concerned about your level of intensity and how hard you can go.
And how much emphasis in these games, the secret scrimmage against Oklahoma State and then in the exhibition against Emporia State, how much emphasis do you put on the performances in game compared to in practices? How do you balance those two out, especially with so much competition at some key spots?
There is no such thing as non-meaningful minutes. Like every single minute is meaningful. Every single practice, every inter squad, it is all charted. And I mean, they're getting delivered today. The combination of their practices and inter squad. So minus the Oklahoma State, there's no such thing as a drill or a segment that is not being charted and recorded. We do not miss much. Coach Barnes at Tennessee is a friend, and he told me this a couple of years ago, and he said, Paul, I bet nobody watches more practice film than I do. And internally, I said, you want to bet? I'm not getting beat there. And so there is not a single thing that is not charted. So it's all meaningful, and you constantly try to convey it. I mean, I show them how they do push-ups when we come in here on film and how that's not okay. Like, I mean, that's like you're trying to cut corners here, and we count them. Like, if we tell you to do 5 push-ups, we don't mean 4.5. But I didn't think some guys locked out their elbows, and these were like little wimpy push-ups. And it's like we're not following. So we put it on the board, we show them, and this is what's required of you. But I do believe that it's we take quite a bit from this.
That level of detail. Why do you do it? Why do you think it's important for your program?
Yeah, one, winning is in the details. Anybody can come out here and run a play. I mean, anybody can come out here and make movements, but the teaching goes into the detail, the timing goes into the detail. Detail is actually what wins games. And so, in my mind, everybody has plays, everybody has pick and roll coverages. It's kind of how you do things and how guys are utilized. But they need to understand. I mean, when I go and watch high school practices, and if I watch a kid, coach says run, and they do not touch a line, I usually this kid isn't for me. Like, there's a level of detail that's required to be good at anything. And in my mind, it just tells me, like, you're committed to doing it right. And if you're not committed to doing it right, eventually it catches up to you. So I want people who care about doing it right. Sometimes you have to point that out, though. They've never been held accountable to do those kind of things. So for us, winning is in the details.
You guys like TJ, the newcomers like TJ and Zion, do they have that in them? Do they have those level of details in them?
No, and I don't think any freshman does, to be honest with you. I mean, I've just never been around a freshman because it's all different. How you do things is different from wherever it was they came from. But, I mean, we didn't have a single guy late last year. We haven't had anybody late this year. But, I mean, when we say be here at 2:30, for me, it's a trust issue. Like, 2:30 means 2:30. It doesn't mean a second after. And the earlier here, in my mind, that explains to me how important this is to you. What's your care factor? And if your care factor is low and showing up on time and being dependable and trustworthy isn't important to you, we're not going to put trust and dependability into you. So I would rather have a guy whose production may be a little lower, but you can trust him. Because I can go to sleep at night versus the guys who they're just kind of all over the map. I think every coach wants the same thing, and what they want is consistency. If you lack consistency, you don't know how to game plan because you're like, I don't know what we're getting tonight, and there's a bunch of guesswork. How do you know if they're consistent? Can you trust them?
And with Ronnie, playing some spot minutes at the 5, what do you like about him as a defender? It seems like he kind of plays a little bit bigger than his size, and then how do you guys, address rebounding, rim protection with, playing like a 6'6" guy at the 5?
Yeah, rebounding is gang rebounding, and so defensively it requires all 5 guys. So you do have to have all 5 engaged. The other team is not going to send 5 to the glass. They may send 3, they may send 4. Most teams usually send 3.5. So that means a half guy running to the nail. And so I think a lot of times it's going to be more gang rebounding. There are elite level rebounders where we may have to go sandwich a guy. We're going to have to go double team a guy on that. From an offensive standpoint, I do think that if there is a bigger guy guarding Ronnie, and we see this with Quincy during practice, is sometimes they're not used to being screened. There's a mobility issue sometimes, and at the same time, they don't necessarily know how to get through screens. So you'll see us throw maybe to the elbow and then go crack that guy, go screen the guy defending him with a different personnel, and then either getting the switch or that ability to drive it. And so there's different ways to use him there.
I know you talked about Monte's shoulder a minute ago,
Mm-hmm.
but are you guys battling like several injuries right now? That like is this normal?
Very, very normal. Yeah, it's did you just say ramp up?
Yeah.
It's that's the word we use. I mean, I think today is practice number 20 for us. We only get 30 of them. So this is practice number 20, and it is the ramp up. The first week I mean, we have 15 guys. There were times we only had 9 available because you get knees and ankles and hamstrings and a lot of soft tissue things because you try to prepare them. We do a thing called 10th round, and I tell them that 10th round is really one mentally to get you ready for the last 4 minutes of a game. But at the same time, we're just trying to get you ready to go through a 2.5 hour practice. So very normal. It's probably more of a stinger inflammation issue that we can kind of calm down and takes 48 hours. But this is very normal for this time of year.
How does that complicate things though when it comes to like just like scheduling out a practice and stuff when you got 9 instead of 15?
You better have some experience as a coach. Like, I've seen this before. Here's what we're moving to, and there is, but I don't know that that's anything different than what you occur in a game. You know, a guy gets a sprained ankle, a guy gets in foul trouble, something happens, and this guy's out. Now you need to adjust. So, very, very common. It's just, to be honest with you, I just go with the flow. We adapt, and we'll move on to the next thing. We don't really make a big deal out of it.
Last week, the NCAA changed some of its rules relating to like national limits of intent. Do you have any like reaction to those changes?
So, tell me again.
They changed the rules relating to like national letter of intent.
Oh, yeah.
Eliminated it. Do you have any reaction to those changes? You know, how much is that going to affect your recruiting process?
Doesn't impact it at all. There's still a signing period, and so instead of signing a national letter of intent, they just sign a financial aid agreement, which is what they did with the national letter of intent anyway. So I don't know that it just kind of gets rid of the process. I think it's one less thing that the NCAA needs to monitor, and they don't necessarily, they can kind of, man, let's concentrate on bigger fish here. This is a pretty small one. Let's let the institutions handle it. But it has zero impact on recruiting.
What do you want to get out of the exhibition game? What are you, some of the details you're looking for? What's, I mean, obviously you guys don't care about the score, so what are some of the things that are important to you guys?
We do care about the score. I do want to win.
Yeah.
Tom Billiter is a friend, and he's in his first year at Emporia State, so I know he'll have those guys ready. I mean, the big thing is, what are the combinations that work well? Do guys understand that with this particular group, this is kind of what the flow should look like? This is what the flow should look like if this particular person is in, offensively and defensively. I mean, there's some lineups where we can kind of turn up pressure, and we need to be better at. And there's also some offensive, being able to play inside out with certain groups versus we're trying to change sides of the court and change hands. And so those lineups differ. And I think we played these combinations enough that they're familiar with it, but there'll probably be some combinations in there that haven't necessarily got a lot of reps. So do guys kind of understand what to do?
What's the message to the locker room before an exhibition game like this? This is a situation where it's like, there are minutes to be earned in this type of game.
Yeah, one, it's probably no different than a real game is, you need to have your heart in the right place. Make sure that we are celebrating each other's success. There's during games, especially early, and I try to let them know that, I mean, there's going to be a variety. I think that there's going to be a variety of lineups. I think the team that necessarily starts a game, that's not even going to necessarily be the group that starts at halftime. And so sometimes players can get disengaged, like, man, I've been sitting over here for 10 or 12 minutes and I haven't gotten in. We put a premium on body language. The other day when we came in here for film, we just showed 5 minutes of the bench at a recent practice and what their level of engagement was. And so you really try to get across that everybody better be engaged mentally and physically and vocally through that whole process, but your heart has to be in the right place. The guys hear me say this a lot. You better make sure we do the heart before we do the hard work. Like, if you're not into this 100%, you're not going to be able to translate into physical actions. So you have to do the hard work before you do the hard work.
And can you expand, like, what are kind of the benefits of wanting that kind of bench to be really engaged and, you know, showing the players film of what the bench is looking like, what type of things are you looking for?
Yeah, I think you could probably, I encourage the players to go into any high school game and don't even look at the score. Just go look at the benches. And you can probably identify who's winning and who's losing. You can see a level of engagement. John Lucas coaches for the Rockets, and he's a friend. And he told me this a long time ago. He said, uncoachable players become unemployed adults. If you see people who are not engaged, it's a matter of time before that stuff comes back and bites them. So where they're looking, who they're paying attention to, the eye contact with coaches and with players, we chart high fives. LeBron James led the NBA with 41 high fives a game. And you realize that elite players can add value to other people, not just their team. And so we need to know that when a guy exits the bench, everybody stands up and shows appreciation. And acknowledges the fact that that guy gave his best for the team. But all this stuff plays a part in who they are as people, in my opinion. So that their engagement matters, whether we're in front of fans or whether they're not.
Anything else?
Thanks, guys.